Hello and welcome to Post-Burnout.com interviews. Post-Burnout.com is a culture website dedicated to venerating burnt-out artists the world over. My name is Aaron Kavanagh and I'm the website's founder and editor-in-chief. This is our website's podcast where we publish the full interviews from our site's articles and sometimes release exclusive episodes. Well, I hope everyone's had a good holiday season 2025. Here I am getting through my backlog with an interview I actually recorded back in October, and I want to apologise to Kevin, Ken and Dan who set up this interview for how long it took me to get it out. 2025 has been a bit of a hectic year for me, as I'm sure it has for a lot of people, so thank you for sticking with postburnout.com throughout 2025, and I look forward to seeing you all into 2026. I have 2 interviews left that I want to get out before the end of this year so I can go into 2026 with a fresh slate. We have some interesting interviews coming up already pitched for January, so I'm looking forward to that. And if you want to get in touch about doing an interview with us, email me at aaron@postburnout.com. Thank you very much. In this edition of Postburnout.com interviews, Kevin, Kelly and Ken Kuniyoshi of the legendary Philadelphia math rock project Drill for Absentee discuss their reformation, their new lineup, making and releasing their latest album Strand of a Lake Volume 1 and Volume 2, working remotely between the United States and Japan, how things have changed since the 90s, Kevin's career as a music lecturer and working with the younger generations, juggling the band with their family lives, the future of the project, and much more.
Hello, Aaron.
Very nice to
Oh,
meet you. How are you?
I'm doing well. Yourself?
Very well. By the way, I just want to apologize for not getting back sooner in the week. Life of a freelancer, I'm always just like hopping around.
Hey, it's all good. It's all good. I feel like I've got two kids, like 7 and 11, and I feel like every hour of every day, it's like, what's next? What do I got to do?
Yes.
So,
I still have the mentality of that age group, so
yeah,
despite being a few decades removed.
yeah, yeah. So
Um,
how are things? How are things in Dublin?
Very nice. The weather's lovely. You got the beautiful crisp autumn, and I love my favorite season. Thankfully,
Yeah.
I'm a huge sucker for overcast.
Oh yeah, me too. So it's interesting because live I didn't grow up in Los Angeles. I grew up in Philadelphia,
Yeah.
and hey Ken, and
hey,
but like my family all has Irish roots. Actually, my wife and son are dual citizens
Oh,
with
sick.
Ireland, and just a quirk. Because my daughter was born before my wife got the dual citizenship. She is not a dual citizen, and I am not. But
Mm.
but we've been to Ireland several times and we love it. And the very few days that it rains here, we're always like celebrating. And my kids all the time are like, "Can we go visit Ireland?" Because they like overcast too. So
I
it's
think I think we're kind of the inverse. A few times it doesn't rain, we celebrate. So,
right. Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly.
Ken, very nice to meet you too. How are you?
hey, yes, uh, happy Friday night in Japan.
Oh, what
Almost
time is it there?
Saturday
It's
morning. It's 11:30 p.m.
Oh, okay. It's
Yes.
Yeah.
yeah, it's 3:30 here. 3:30
Yes. So
p.m.
I'm kind of dazed a little, but please carry on, and I'll jump in anytime.
All right.
Well,
Sounds good. Thanks for joining us, Ken. I
I'll
know
try
it's
to take up
late night
quite
for
your time.
you. So.
Yes, but this is what it is. The new era.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Talking in different time zones.
Yeah.
Well,
Exactly.
that's
That's what makes it so beautiful. This wouldn't have happened like 30 years ago.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
well, that's a good jumping off point. So obviously, with the band now, my understanding is because everyone's all the members are so dispersed, it is sort of a remote project at the moment anyway. Yeah, I was wondering because like given the obviously the music complexities and that you have to consider when doing math rock in general, are those is that compounded then with doing it remotely, or does it make the process a little easier or is it just better to do it in a room? Because like obviously when you guys started in the mid 90s, like that's it was doing it in a room together. So does this complicate things? Does it make it easier?
I mean, I guess I would probably say, having been on both sides of that, like been in the band in the 90s and then now, playing with Ken and Mike currently, it's just so different in terms
Yeah.
of what the process is like. And, you know, the initial iteration of Drill for Absentee, I that was my late high school years and early college years that I was doing that, and it was kind of, even though we were out and playing shows, I feel like our happiest moments were we were in our original drummer's basement, just like hashing ideas out. We had a big whiteboard, and like
Yeah.
going through ideas, and it was very um, building block oriented. Like maybe someone would come in with a riff and play it for us, and then we would start to build around that, and like, oh, what if we went to this next? What if I'm playing in this time signature while you're playing that? Where do those meet up? And we'd like map them out, like the kind of the possibilities of it, and experiment. Whereas now, I mean, I guess it's similar in that someone often will bring initial kernel, and I would say mostly it was Mike that had the initial ideas. There were a few ideas that Ken or I would throw out as possibilities, but Mike had a lot of little fragments, and then we would just build from there. But I think, at least for me, like working here, like I feel like I did a lot of things where I was stitching together elements that were proposed and coming up with other ideas, and it led to things that I don't think we ever would have done organically in a room together. Just because, like, working with audio in a digital audio workstation and being able to like experiment with different things, like there are a few things that are on the album that we've never actually even all three been in a room together. Ken and I,
Yeah.
like, we've been on Zoom calls together and lots of text threads, but we've never met in person. And sometimes I'm like, if we're gonna play these at some point, like that's gonna be hard to work out how to actually do this, because there's some moments where just the independence of the ideas is something that I don't think ever would have happened if it developed as like a live idea.
Ken, very interesting your inclusion in this new iteration of drill. So, um, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe you're, if not from, you're at least based in Okinawa.
Hmm.
So I was wondering, how exactly did you, when the project was regrouping, how exactly did you come in to fill in for Brian?
Okay, so it's a very interesting story actually. So we're gonna go back to 2020 when
Hmm.
COVID hit. So before that, I was playing in a local band, just like any other band. I've been playing drums since high school. Did nothing really tangible. I never really released like a final record. I always dreamt of it. But when COVID hit, I couldn't go into the studio with my band, my local band, or play shows. So, but I had to keep on practicing, otherwise I'll lose it. So what I started doing was I played 90s obscure hardcore drum covers on a weekly basis. So about like the 100th cover, maybe after I did a June of 44 drum cover, Mike saw it. I was uploading on Twitter or and YouTube, and Mike saw it and he thought, cool, he thought of the crazy idea to contact me, stationed in Okinawa, this nobody, and then, you know, I said, sure, like I like to be part of this great thing. But yeah, so that's how it started. Yeah. Very challenging though. Yeah. So it feels
So we,
like I have this toolbox, I developed over the years. So I'll just use all the tools I have. And then Kevin will kind of put everything together so it makes sense. Yeah.
so could I ask, so what was your familiarity with the band prior to being asked?
Oh, well, I never I don't really have that much knowledge about like music, like
Hmm.
punk music. I think I heard Drill for Absentee sounded familiar in some of the mixtapes I heard in the 90s, but I totally forgot about them.
Yeah.
And then when Mike called, contacted me, like it was like, holy crap, like these guys are solid, and
Yeah.
I thought I was totally unqualified, but you know, I did my best, and now we have a record, so can never be happier.
Kevin, I want to ask you then. So
Mm.
if I'm getting the story of how the project reemerged, so you originally went for about 4 years from 95 to 99, and then called it quits. My understanding is that it was actually Michael who was looking at math rock videos on YouTube, and he kind of felt that what now is considered math rock is kind of dispersed from what it was when Drill for Absentee were around initially. So. Um, when he contacted you about potentially reforming the band, what was your reaction like?
Well, I think the initial idea was more commemorative. I mean, I hadn't. Mike and I were involved with a few musical projects post Joe for Absentee. He had some solo material that I played on, and I played in a band of his. For a while, we actually had he had like a solo project that he had put a band together for, and one of the members of Hoover, Joe McRedmond, yeah, from Hoover was playing bass in that band, and Vin from the Crown Hate Ruin, I think played some drums or some vibes or something, and I played keys in that group. So we had kept a artistic relationship for a while, but then I hadn't spoken with him in quite a long time. We kind of lost touch, and so he reached out and said, "Hey, do you want to do something to commemorate?" Either the 20th or 25th anniversary of like releasing something, probably the Circle music.
Oh, is there an audio cutoff?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so.
Mm.
I think
Am I back?
oh, perfect. Hey, sorry,
Am I
Kevin. You
back?
were
Yeah.
saying you were talking
Yeah.
about potentially regrouping for commemoration of one of your commemoration's a bad word. It sounds like something was lost, but
Yeah.
an anniversary of a particular
Yeah, I mean,
release.
just to say like, hey, we did this and we want to celebrate that fact in some way and show that we're still around in some aspect. So anyway, he approached me about that. I said sure, and then he got in touch with Brian Sargent, who we always called Sarge, and Sarge didn't really play drums anymore. He's moved on to a different career. I think he's a photographer in New York. And so then Mike has always kind of been like this. He's like he makes unlikely things happen a lot. He's like the one in the band who does that. And so he found Ken, it's just like he wasn't going to take like, oh, I guess Sarge doesn't play anymore, so we're going to put that idea to bed. He just like found Ken and said, hey, I found this drummer online. Like, should we try and do something? And I think we were just going to do maybe one song, and it grew from there. So
I also want to ask. So I was mentioning again the EPK I was sent. It was mentioning that math rock what it is now. I was wondering like because when Drill for Absentee kind of started, it was sort of a nascent genre at that point. It really hadn't been around for that long. Obviously you kind of come off the post-hardcore thing. It's sort of an offshoot of that. There's very few, I guess, projects that were kind of doing that solo music at the time. When the band initially started back in '95, what were the kind of common influences, or did you feel what you were doing at the time was more unique?
I mean, I think at the time, so I met Mike. We kind of knew each other peripherally because we were in other bands playing around the Philadelphia and Westchester, which is a suburb of
Mhm.
Philadelphia. We were both around that area and playing at like, pizza stores that had music and things like that in different bands. But he approached me and he was like, I want to do this project that's sort of like a more complicated project. He's like, our first song is 15 minutes long. And I was like, oh, it piqued my interest because I was very into so I teach composition and music theory at a college, and I was already starting to kind of get interested in avant-garde classical music, and I was certainly into a lot of weird jazz. I was in another project that was like, so we always called it like punk jazz, that was very
Mhm.
improvisatory and like wild stuff. So I was just interested in the idea, but I also like bands like Fugazi and like that kind of sound world. But I didn't really know a ton. I'm not even sure I knew Hoover yet at that point. And so they turned me on to some of the bands that were doing some more asymmetrical meters. and that kind of tied into some of my other interests. And it was sort of like, oh, this is a way of like rocking out and playing this passionate music and like going nuts on stage, but at the same time the music is like really complicated and it takes a lot of thought and effort to put it together, and the pieces are they're more like pieces than songs. They're like they have a journey, they have a real narrative arc to them. So and then we started the I feel like the Crown Hate Ruin was the band that we were most influenced by, because Hoover had broken up, but they had two members of Hoover in it, and they were doing just amazing things. Trying to think of other bands that we were playing with at the time that were doing that kind of stuff. Um, but yeah, I feel like it was less because I don't we didn't even really listen to like Slint, for example.
Mhm.
I think their album had come out
It
while
came
we
out in
were
'91, I think.
okay. Yeah,
Spiderland. Yeah,
yeah. So,
yeah,
but for whatever reason, I mean, it's in the internet age, this kind of thing seems impossible. But I feel like at that time, if it was from a different region and it was kind of underground, like you
sure.
could completely miss something that would later seem like a seminal work in that genre, you know?
I find that like really interesting too. Yeah, how like especially because I think that was on Touch and Go, if I'm correct. So, how like kind of the indie labels at the time, stuff that didn't have like big pressing would have been, I guess, kind of like missed. It's interesting because like all these like different scenes, and obviously in the US, such a massive country that's so like I don't know if atomized is the right term, but so kind of regional,
Yeah.
that it's like, if an indie label was doing something in one city, it wouldn't necessarily reach over there. And even like in Ireland, it's very strange. Like, we're a much smaller country, obviously, but there are these like little music pockets that are popping up now. And like pretty much every city has like, something kind of, or every like region, kind of like city, town, village has something within proximity that's happening. And I'm noticing that now too, even in the digital age, where it's like, you know um like you're not always attuned to what's happening in each little region. So I can only
Right.
imagine in a country the size of the US. So
Yeah.
it's not very surprising to me that like Spiderland wasn't necessarily on people's radar.
True. I mean, I remember when I first started getting into this stuff in high school, it was like I would go to the record stores that I had access to, like the local ones in Westchester, or go into Philadelphia, and even like finding like a Fugazi CD was hard. I'd go in and ask, and they wouldn't have it. And I remember like my best friend in high school who was also into all this stuff. We went on like a school trip to DC to the National Mall, and we snuck away from the school and we went to the Discord house, because I
Oh,
think we
cool.
thought if we went to the Discord house,
They
like
would
they
have
would
them
just
there.
have all the records that we wanted. But it's just a house, and we just like
Yeah.
stood outside and we're like, what do we do now? Do we knock on the door?
Did you recreate
We
the
didn't do
minor threat
anything.
photo?
What's that?
Did you recreate the minor threat photo? That's
Yeah,
what I
I
think
think
everyone has to do.
well, we didn't have phones in our pockets, so I think it was just like a couple of kids not knowing what to do. I mean, we were like 16 years old.
I like the
But,
idea of
but yeah,
like Ian
it's
McKay chasing you off with like a broom or
yeah, yeah,
something. Like, get after
exactly.
him.
But yeah, I think like that's how inaccessible some of these things were. So unless they showed up, I remember playing shows and going to shows as a teenager. There would be a bin of 7 inches basically, and like you'd flip through and you'd see stuff and like, oh, I've never seen this before. I'm going to get this, take a risk on it. But unless it showed up in that bin, then you
You didn't
probably
have
didn't hear
access.
about it.
Yeah. Um, like I find it very interesting because like they used to like in the old fanzines, it was like mail us $20 to this address and you'll get it. And it's like okay,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
even then you'd have to have access to the fanzines.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah. I want to ask actually, does it feel like Drill for Absentees celebrating its 30th anniversary? Does it feel that long to you?
I mean, no, and I mean it's weird at this stage of life. So I'm 47, and it was such a big part of my life during a certain era. But then I've had so many other experiences, and then getting back into it, it's almost just like reopening one part of my
Hmm.
life. And but yeah, it's hard to reconcile with it being 30 years. I mean, just the 90s in general being 30
Yeah.
some years
I'm
ago.
like that with the 80s being 40 years. That's messing me up.
Yeah, yeah, it just like doesn't compute,
Yeah.
and um but I don't know, like I think what's interesting is that some of the kind of underground music from the 90s still feels urgent and fresh. You know what I
Mm.
mean? Like it doesn't necessarily feel like dated in a way that some eras do. Like its fingerprints. Maybe the pop music of that era has its sort of cliched fingerprints, but the underground stuff feels like it could be made now. And I think that that's cool.
Well, that was the interesting thing when I was listening to your new double EP. I want to make sure I get the title correct with the double EP.
Yeah, that's confusing
and
everybody. So
Mm.
it's basically an album, but it's two EPs, kind of.
yeah,
And
yeah.
there's the concept is basically the first half is sort of kind of feels like a continuity of what you were doing back then, and the second half is sort of showing your evolution as a band and as musicians. In between that time, I mean, had you been you mentioned you've been playing in other bands, but were you like still honing your craft, or were you kind of more on the didactic side of music rather than the practical, rather?
Right. So my main music projects of the last like 20 years have been I've got a duo with my wife called Homesick Elephant, which is very much like a harmony based like indie folk
Mhm.
duo. So it's worlds apart from Drill for Absentee. And then my wife and I were also in a band together, which we don't want to admit is not together anymore, but it's been like dormant for quite some time, called Cheese
It's
on
on
Bread.
indefinite hiatus.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Which was like a very like bouncy, dancey, fun, like indie pop band that we used to play in New York a lot. And those bands, like all three of those, are really very different projects. And then at the same time, I write, classical music, and it's like that's part of what I've spent my time doing. That's what my degrees are in classical composition. Um, so I got kind of all these different hats that I'm wearing, and I think at least for me, some more of those things showed up on the second EP. So that like some of the layers of background harmony vocals, um, and some of the textures that are there kind of allow me to do that. Plus, I feel like I play when I was in Drill for Absentee originally, um, like I was very much a bassist, and now I feel more like a multi instrumentalist. Like I play keys and guitar at a similar level to where I play bass now, so I can kind of apply more of that. So I guess yeah, I've been honing my craft. I mean, music is all I do. Like I feel very fortunate to have um, found a life in which most of like everything that I do for a living is music related. I'd like to be more creative, have more creative time than I do, but at least just get to talk about music all day, which is a great place to be. So I'm kind of always in that world.
I just want, I'll talk to you a bit more about music. Could you just give me 1 second? It's just my laptop's, but I just have to get my
Oh yeah,
charger.
yeah.
I'll be back in a
Take
second.
your time.
Thanks.
How's it going, Ken?
Yes, looking good. I like your hair.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
It's funny because I wanted to let my hair grow for a while, but then it got
Mhm.
to a point where it was just in my like it was too long for me to
Mm.
to function.
Mm.
So then I
Mm.
started putting it up,
Mm.
and I'm not sure if I or not, but I don't like to change my look during the semester so that because then all the students are like, "You got a haircut," So I'm like, this is like the audition for this look this semester,
Mm.
and
Mm.
reconsider in the winter.
Mm. Yeah, looking great. And that's your office where you did all what all the work on your computer for the
Yep,
record?
yep, pretty
Okay.
much.
Oh, soundproof. I see the board. What on
Yeah,
the
so
wall?
this
Wall, yeah.
Yeah, so I have these all over there. It's a company
Mm,
called GIK Acoustics, and
mm,
they sell
mm,
these acoustic panels, uh,
mm,
which when I put those in here to begin with, the difference
mm.
it made is just extraordinary. Like
Okay.
I mean, it's not a professional level recording
Mm,
room,
mm,
but the
mm,
difference between what it was and what it is now is just
mm,
immense. Like I couldn't
mm,
believe I'd heard this before that
mm,
like people spend all this money on gear and
mm,
plugins and
mm,
things like
mm,
that, but you really should start
mm,
spending your money on is just treating your
mm,
room. And
mm,
I think it's really true. Like I don't know
mm,
why it's like not as sexy as buying a new microphone or like a cool plug-in, but just
mm,
buying some panels for your wall and like
mm,
experimenting with where to put them is the biggest
mm,
difference you can make.
mm. Yeah, I see. I think that's what makes us punk rock in a sense. You know.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
it's interesting, Ken. I don't think I specifically told you this, but it's kind of a wild thing about the and Aaron, this may be of interest to you too. The first EP, like we had finished up all the recording stuff, and then I was going to mix, and we'd been talking about having someone else mix the record,
Mm,
and we actually had someone on board for a while, and then they weren't sure they were going to be able to put the time in that
mm,
was required to mix like
mm,
all these different layers that we were working with. So I sort of no, I don't want to say hesitantly, but I was more just like scared that I wasn't going to be able to do a good enough job with it because I've never actually mixed a whole record. Like I mix my
mm,
own things, but this felt like the biggest undertaking for as a
mm,
mixing job that I'd
mm,
done. So I said I would do it, but that summer at my house we had like this massive plumbing leak, and we needed to spend $8,000
mm,
out of the
mm,
blue, like to replace our
mm,
main plumbing line.
mm,
And
mm,
that was sort of like, okay, there goes our summer plans. Like, I guess we're just gonna do nothing this summer.
mm,
But then our friends needed a cat sitter, so we ended up Airbnb-ing our house and cat
mm,
sitting at a friend's
mm,
house to
mm,
like make money and pay up
mm,
like
mm,
to
mm,
recoup our savings. But
So did you put
interesting,
plumbing happening on the Airbnb?
yeah. Well, it was
mm,
fixed. It was fixed
Okay.
by then,
mm,
but
mm,
yeah, we just needed the money back. So
mm,
anyway, but the point is, so the our friends they lived in a house, and the house was originally well, it was still owned by, and this guy lived in the back, a
mm,
woodwind player who had played on Miles Davis's Bitches Brew.
Oh,
Um,
really?
yeah, his name is Benny Maupin, and this is the house he had lived in like since the 70s. And so I was just like thinking, wow, like all of the amazing jazz musicians who must have been in this house, like
mm,
and that's where I mixed the record. Like I moved my
mm,
whole setup over
mm.
there and I mixed the record in that house. And then that house burned down in the fires in LA in
Damn.
January. So it's like really, and it's funny because it
Mm,
like all those things kind of happened separately and I heard about
mm,
them separately, but then at some
mm,
point I'm like, whoa, like I mixed this record in this amazing house and like that house doesn't
mm,
exist anymore.
mm,
I kind of want people to know about it, like I feels like
mm, mm.
That's a good selling point, I guess. You'd be like the last record produced in this
I
house.
know, I know, I know. And apparently our friends like pretty much say because he's quite elderly and he lives in the
Mhm.
back house just by himself. And apparently our friends like essentially had to drag him out when evacuations were being ordered. He was like, "No, no, I'm staying." They're like, "No, you're coming with us."
Yeah.
And but I think he lost all of his like instruments and like a bunch of old records and things like that because he wasn't ready to go. Like he wasn't planning on leaving. He just had to go essentially to save his life.
Jeez.
Yeah,
That's a bummer. Uh,
I know, I
yeah.
know. I mean, honestly, like there's one of those LA fires. Like there were two big neighborhoods that were devastated by those fires, and LA is so weird because it's so spread out. It's not like one city. It's like
Yeah.
100 cities, and but there's one on the west side closer to the ocean that's like mostly extremely wealthy people that live there, and I don't really know many of them. But the other one was like a lot of artists with families lived there because it was one of the places that was still relatively affordable to like have some space.
Hmm.
And so I knew tons of people who lost their homes in Altadena, including this guy. So.
It's actually I don't know like about like much about LA. Obviously, you live there, so I was wondering if is this still actually an affordable place for like new artists coming out and people who are trying to make a living there, or is it mainly just people who've been kind of grandfathered in?
I mean, the I think the biggest problem with the LA music scene, it's really music scenes because
Sure.
it's so spread out that there's a lot of different people. But the biggest problem is just the affordability crisis that we have here, and you usually hear it about homes, which of course is the most important thing because there's a lot of people who can't afford homes here, and like that drives the homelessness crisis that we have in LA.
Yeah.
Um, but it also affects the music making because the places there really aren't that many places for people to play that can build a long lasting reputation because they'll be like punk spaces and then they disappear because they're not like permitted, or there'll be a place that's really cool and then the landlord will raise the rent and there's no real way for them to do it, to charge enough that they can actually maintain it. So you do still have like bigger venues, but and some of it, I mean, I know there are kids like playing punk rock shows in places, and I just don't know about it anymore. Like I'm not of that age group anymore. But yeah, I mean, I think the live music scene is less cool than it was. I mean, it was when I first moved here in the early 2000s, like I really loved the sort of independent folk scene that I was part of, and there were so many cool venues to play and so many cool bands, but there's still people doing cool stuff. I mean, it's a really vibrant city. It's just the problem is that there's almost nowhere that you can live unless you have like a very solid income, it's
Yeah.
there isn't like there's not a place anymore where it's like, oh, I'll just get this cheap warehouse, in this like neighborhood that's on the borderline of even being safe. Like it doesn't really feel like there's any places that exist like that anymore in LA, and that's a problem for particularly for like underground music.
Could I ask, did you move to LA for art or for teaching?
For teaching. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I applied for tenure track teaching positions all over the country because I loved Philadelphia. I didn't want to leave, but I kind of realized that if I restricted myself geographically, I would probably just be an adjunct faculty forever because I saw a lot of people doing that. So I just applied to everything all over the country and just happened to get an interview in Los Angeles and then get the job, and it worked out really well. So
Perfect.
yeah.
I want to talk about going back then to this new iteration of the band. So Ken, could I ask? So you're obviously the newest member here. When how did the initial kind of meetings work? Was it on Zoom like this, or was it kind of written emails, or like how did you guys actually kind of like meet?
It was DMs basically
Yes.
and emailing sound files.
Mhm.
So he'll send me like a riff. Um, for Hums, that's the first song we worked on. He had all the guitars and the singing. It was all like completed. And then he asked me to do some overdubs. So I try to do the best I could, get his input. The songwriter's intent is very important to me. If he wants this section slow, I'm gonna play it slow. If he wants this part fast, I'm gonna play it fast. And then so I kind of got some pieces together. And then when Kevin came in, it became totally different. And I was overwhelmed by Kevin's performance. I almost bailed out because there's no way I can keep up with Kevin. But
Oh, Ken,
Mike
get out of
convinced me
He didn't
because
say
I
this
was
when he was
thinking like,
auditioning, though.
yeah. So this is where the magic happens. Like we have these independent ideas, and like just from my experience, playing in random bands for the past 30 years in a studio, especially in Japan, somebody will take the lead and kind of dictate the whole
Mhm.
song. But with this project, different ideas come in, and the end result is something we never imagined. Even with the album cover, it turned out something we never ever expected. So yeah, honestly, like if we were to play shows someday, if we ever could, I'll have to relearn all the songs again from
Yes.
Me too.
scratch. Yes. Yeah, it like there's so much ideas jam packed in one song, but yeah, like I'll say like Kevin really try to um make everything make sense with some kind of groove. Yeah, because if I put my mind to it, all I think is about my drumming. But like Kevin will kind of pull me, you know, a little bit toward, making it like a song that makes sense with a more emphasis on grooving, not like showing off my technique because that's what drummers tend to do, you know.
Yes.
So yeah, but anyway, like yeah, it's still mind-boggling how we managed to make 8 songs because yeah, it was really tough, but it was fun. Yeah, like as for drawing wise, I was in the moment every time. Like, I'll play like 100 takes or something, before I send a demo to them, and then it's gonna change completely. And yeah,
Yeah,
it's
and
really
that
hard to describe.
yeah, I mean, I think there were in many ways, I think of the remote nature of this project as being a benefit to it, but I think one of the challenges was that it made the time frame of it all just take a lot longer than we had anticipated, which honestly is no big deal, except that we kind of like put out a few dates that we were hoping things would be done by, and then it was like, oh yeah, that's not going to happen. Like there's just no way that
Yeah.
it's going to happen in that particular time frame.
Do you guys like beat yourself up then when you miss a deadline? Or you kind of go, no, we just have to focus on getting the next one.
I don't think we beat ourselves. I didn't beat myself up too much
Yeah.
about it. Occasionally, I feel like I've got like these segments of my brain with like growing, like nagging, like you should be working on this kind of things. And there were times where the drill for absentee side would be like that. And it was often, and I don't know, Ken, if you felt like this ever, but there would be a song where a bunch of work needed to be done on it, and then someone would suddenly step forward and like have completed their side of it, and then I would realize that it was now on me to like catch up, like, oh, okay, now the other two just put in all of this effort, and now this project doesn't go forward until I do my contribution. Oh crap, because there was like a comfort level in being like, well, we're all kind of doing our lives, we all have a lot of stuff, and then suddenly it's like they took time out of their lives to do
Yeah.
this. I got to figure out how to make this work within my life.
I imagine the construction is quite difficult because I'm picturing sort of like a tower of Jenga blocks, right? And
Hmm.
like if you want to rearrange one thing, so much stuff has to collapse. Like say for example, I mean you want to add like a base fill, let's say, to accommodate that, I mean, the other members probably have to. It's probably like much more complex than I think people actually give it credit towards. So, in the process of like writing the songs, were there many rewrites, many redirections? Like, okay, we actually have to kind of take it in this direction rather than this, and that means shaving off 2 minutes here and adding a minute here or whatever. Or was it pretty straightforward? I mean, once you had kind of the base, it was easy to build upon.
I mean, I think there was a lot of moving things around and dramatic. Like I think the most dramatic of things was the song "Steely," unstable thing. So if I cut it out, the internet has been. I'm on Ethernet here, but the internet in this area has been weird lately. But anyway, with Steely, like Mike sent like a very very long demo with multiple different parts, and it must have been like 12 or 13 minutes long, and there were recurring ideas, but I felt like there was no real way that it was going to work as a structure from beginning to end in that particular way. And so I ended up just kind of taking it section by section and rethinking different ways that it could work. And I essentially reassembled the whole song. And this is where, I mean, there's no way that I could have done this without kind of modern digital audio workstations, because the ability to make edits and then reassemble things, was essential to the project. So I like almost treating it as like a modular entity, like refashioned the song and sent it back to Mike and Ken, like, what about this? And then they had to relearn the song entirely based on the new form. And it did go back and forth that way. Um, and then, but even honestly, even in the end, there were some, the way it sounds on the record, there were still some edits in kind of post production made, like, okay, this really needs another phrase here. Can I figure out how to make that work together with editing?
Well, actually, digital editing already existed in the original time frame of the band. At that stage, back in the 90s, were you guys still using tape, or had you already graduated to digital?
I think it was a mix. My memory's we definitely recorded to tape. Mostly recorded to tape. Whether or not those were dumped into Pro Tools and mixed there, I actually don't remember. I think probably they were. But I honestly, at that point, I knew very, very little about recording. You know, recording for me was, I had a 4 track, so I would occasionally like set up a couple mics and press, set some levels and press record. And that was the extent of my recording knowledge. So everything that I made in the 90s, I mean, honestly, like actually learning how to record myself. And I still feel like I'm a novice, but it was very much like a COVID project. Like
Yeah.
I was here, I taught all my classes remotely. I would do office hours where they were Zoom office hours and no students would come. And so I had time to sitting in front of my computer where I was technically working. And one of the things that I was like, let me try and actually learn some more about this so I can make better, even if they're just demos, like better sounding demos. But like this album, the is the first time I ever mixed drums, and literally, I was like Googling how to mix drums. You know what I mean? Like how do I mix drums? Where do I put them? Like how do I set up the buses? And made a template, and then went from there and learned a lot.
But I love that because it's kind of showing that, like, you never stop learning, right? I mean, even
Oh
if
yeah,
you're like properly established as you are, I mean, not only, with your projects, but also, teaching music that, there's always still more to learn. And I suppose, like, in your lifetime, like, however many decades we have left, there's going to be so much new technology that I think to ever get complacent and say, I kind of know everything is just like absurd.
yeah. No, I agree. Plus, I mean, I very much am of the belief that being passionate about learning new things is like it increases your longevity too. You know what I mean? Like if
Yeah.
you when you settle down, you're like, oh, I've learned everything there is to learn. I feel like it's like a stationary space where you're probably not going to have as much time or excitement in your life. Like if you can be excited about learning new things, there's always like new adventures to be had, and I think that's the way I want to live.
Yeah. I actually have to ask you, ever learn from your students? Do you find that you learn new stuff about what you're doing through your students?
Yeah, I mean all the time. And I mean, to be perfectly honest, I feel like I've learned more about just like life from
Hmm.
my students than anything, mostly because um, like I teach at a community college. I teach like I mean, it's an extremely diverse student population, but generally speaking, like very low income. And my students have had like a lot of struggles in life. And it's a good way to kind of um, get shaken out of my bubble a little bit, like
Yeah.
having grown up in a, you know, comfortable, stable home and, having had a lot of opportunities and, had a lot of education. It's a great learning experience. I've been at the college for 20 years now, and I feel like I've learned so much about just being human from my students. But on a specifically musical level, like it's great to be around young people and hear what they're into, and like it's also interesting when they get back into things and I'm like, oh, like you're into shoegaze? Like shoegaze
Yeah.
is a thing again?
Shoegaze is
Like,
really, yeah, shoegaze is having a huge resurgence. I know it's
I
like a lot of
know.
people are into that. And I actually wonder, like, it's funny because I was actually talking to an artist who was in a shoegaze band, and I'm not. like I like shoegaze, but I'm not like in the subculture. So there is like apparently huge arguments between pedal boards versus digital, and it's like apparently it's like some people it's kind of like poser punks, right? It's like, oh, you're a poser because you like Green Day or whatever. It's kind of like, oh, you're a poser because you use digital. It's like, okay.
Yeah, and all those things just change too. Like
Yeah.
it's what's so funny about it. And I remember the same things.
Yeah.
Um, Speaking of Green Day, I remember when like Dookie came out, and like I had liked Green Day, and I was like, oh, they totally sold out. And now I listen to that album and the earlier albums, and I was like, what was I hearing? They're like exactly the same sound. Like,
Yeah,
how did I
anyone who
think?
went on a major was just like, you're a sellout.
Exactly, exactly. It's just so funny that I could have been in that mindset.
Yeah. Well, no, I think it's interesting now because you have people who, like, I think like so many artists outside of like any of the gravitational from punk, like, are now doing the DIY thing. Like every artist is doing DIY thing because like I think they just realize they don't need record labels or they don't need PR management, with the internet. But it's kind of a double-edged sword. I mean, on the one hand, like, the internet makes your stuff immediately available globally, but simultaneously you're in a huge sea of competition. So I don't really know. I think it swings and roundabouts. Do you find that like do you find actually having to teach younger people, and to me, I'd find, no offense, I find your vocation quite depressing because like every year it'd be like the kids are younger and like so far removed from your date of birth. So I don't know. Sorry, I don't mean to get existential, but
Oh
I'd
no,
be
no,
like,
no, no.
I'd
I
be,
mean,
I'd be all like, oh, Jesus Christ, you were born 2005. My God,
yeah. I mean,
So it's that kind of make you have to keep relevant because you have to kind of like kind of guide them in the struggles in the modern music industry too, you know?
I mean, I think it does. And to be perfectly honest, like I think for me, music has always been about
Oops.
just like I just music, you know. I love the idea of making music. I love the creative act. I love collaborating with people and watching something new emerge. And the business side of it, I've always been very bad at. And I think like every project that I've been in, there's been somebody else who's been making that side of things happen. And in Drill
Yeah.
for Absentee, it was definitely Mike. It has always been Mike is the one who is kind of savvy with those things and knows how to make stuff happen. So I don't know, on the business side, like I feel like I'm not great at guiding my students there. But we have music as a business class. We have other faculty who can do
Yeah.
that. Um,
Mm.
but I don't know, from like for me, it's very hard to I hear what you're saying about like you get older and older and the students kind of are the same age group, although at
Yeah.
least at a community college it's a range. I have students who are older than me sometimes, but the the thing is that you like it's hard to engage authentically with people that are much younger than you. Like I'm not going to like show up at a party with early 20 somethings and be like, "Hey dudes," like they're just not going to want to hang out with me. But when you're their professor and you're sharing information that they want to know and you have this like long history of all these experiences, it does become an authentic relationship. Like
Yeah.
they actually want to hear what I have to say, and I'm interested in what they're into as well. So it's just an opportunity of like it's amazing. I mean, it's an amazing gift to be able to have like authentic trips with 18 to 22-year olds forever, like even as I become a dinosaur. So it's great.
I'm not
It's,
calling you
it's
decrepit.
great.
I want
It's
to make
it's
that
like
clear.
yeah, it's all right. I mean,
You're only 47, dude.
I know, but in the morning I feel like I'm 67.
Yeah, you're only as old as you feel, and I feel decrepit. I'll take a You've been very gracious for your time. I'll try to take up too much more. I just want to ask one thing, actually, kind of speaking on maturity. So, when it comes to, I guess, the lyrical content of this record, do you kind of look back at the music you're putting out in the initial iteration of the band, and how do you feel about, I guess, those lyrics, and how do you contrast them to what you're putting out now?
Looks like the connection kind of got
That's okay.
cut.
Well, Ken, I'll ask you then. So when
Mm.
when it came to making this new record, you're talking about how much creative input you were allowed, you were afforded compared to some of
Mm.
the other bands you played in. Did that extend to lyrics? Did you offer? Ooh,
Yeah. Well,
can you hear me?
I
Oh,
had
sorry. I
no
thought I
role
thought
in
you went
the.
too there. Sorry.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah. Did you have an output there? In terms of like the lyrical content as well.
Absolutely no involvement in the lyrics.
Okay.
um, yeah. English is my second language, so I'll just leave it to them to play around with their language.
You speak it fantastically, by the way. Did you learn it? Is it taught like in
Well,
Japanese schools?
I went to international school when I was a
Okay.
kid. Yes, and then I went to college in Hawaii, and that's
Okay.
when I got acquainted with a lot of the punk hardcore stuff, mainly the
Yeah.
U.S. punk and hardcore.
Is
Yeah.
that like
So.
I know for example like in some of the bigger cities like Tokyo and stuff like
Mhm.
that's like all the subcultures are kind of represented. Do you find that where you live all different music genres are represented?
Yeah, like yeah, Tokyo has everything, and then I'm from the country. I'm in the
Hmm.
island, so I had limited access, but whatever I got, like I think I absorbed. Like in Hawaii, there are a lot of kids who briefly lived in the States in the DC area or
Yeah.
San Diego, and then they'll bring back to their friends what they saw in the mainland. So my knowledge is basically from the mixtapes or the mixed CDs they'll give to me, or whatever records they have extra they'll give to me. So I own very few music material.
Mhm.
So yeah, but yeah.
Sorry, I had to exit there for a moment. My internet went
No
down,
worries.
but I'm back. So
Uh, I was just
last
gonna
thing I
ask.
heard you asking about was the lyrical content.
Yeah, so I was going to ask. So, sometimes I think when, and I can certainly relate to this. When you write lyrics, say as a teenager, sometimes you look back at them as kind of sophomoric or immature. I don't know, like, what's your relation to the old lyrics from your original releases compared to the lyrics on this current releases coming out?
I feel like there's a certain when I was writing lyrics for this. So Mike and I have always written the lyrics for the portions that we're delivering the vocal, whether it's screamed or sung or spoken, and which is interesting too because I think sometimes like we have very different perspectives sometimes, and we'll just let them live. I mean, like it's we don't spend a lot of time being like, do these integrate properly? It's just like they can be what they are in the song
Yeah.
and kind of go that way.
Well, that's what
Um,
stream of consciousness is actually like, though.
yeah,
It's very contradictory. Even a single person's stream of consciousness can be very contradictory.
sure, absolutely. I think I've had similar sort of interests in terms of literature and poetry really consistently since the 90s. And I think what I was experimenting with in the first iteration of DFA was this kind of like stream of consciousness, fragmentary, imagistic kind of writing, and not
Yeah.
worrying too much about the narrative thread of it. And when I listen back to those lyrics, I mostly still like them, although occasionally I'll hear things and be like, that just sounds like me throwing out some weird stuff to be weird. Whereas now, and maybe I'll think the same thing about these lyrics now, but I feel like I have a greater connection. Mostly just I think when I was in Drill for Absentee originally, I had written songs, but I feel like I hadn't really found my songwriting voice yet. Whereas the duo that I've had with my wife for 20 years, like that's my songwriting project. And like now, right after we get off this, I'm teaching a songwriting class on Zoom. So it's like
Oh,
that's a
really?
thing that I think of myself as doing at a professional level now. So I have a better like I guess I thought of these more as songs in terms of the lyrics, and I still wanted to capture that sort of dense stream of conscious kind of imagery of the early DFA songs, but at least in the back of my mind, there was more of a thread or more of a journey that that it was going on. Like I could probably talk more about what the songs were about to me at least, whereas I'm not sure I ever knew with some of the early DFA songs. It was more just like saying things that sounded cool.
Was there a consideration for what the album would be about in that regard, or is each piece just kind of like an individual concept? Like, how's that work? Because you're kind of like mentioned co-writing with Mike, but sort of in a disparse way. So do you guys kind of come together and go, okay, here's the general theme of this song, here's the general theme of the overall piece, or is it just kind of like you write something, I'll write something, and then we'll just kind of mesh them together and see what comes out?
It's more the latter. Like there was actually very little, if any, discussion about the meaning of the lyrics.
Hmm.
Uh, some of the songs Mike had some lyrics already and a vocal delivery idea, and sometimes I would ask him to send me the lyrics, and I would kind of he never told me what he was meaning with his lyrics. So,
Sure.
but sometimes I would kind of glean my own meaning from it and then build upon that. So try and integrate in some way my own lyrics. Um, but some of the ones that I initiated, we didn't really talk about what the song was about. And it's interesting too, because with Steely, like I read in either another interview or some notes that he gave to the PR person about the songs. He talked a little bit about my lyrics for Steely, which he interpreted as being sort of tragic,
Hmm.
and I was like, oh, interesting. Like that's not how I was seeing it all. Like he thought of it as like ending the album on sort of a tragic note. Um, but I think at the time I had simultaneously I can't remember what I was reading, but I had read about something having to do with like a multiverse concept or like many possibilities. And then I had also just happened to like read a little bit of Wittgenstein, who like I don't know, like half the time I don't understand what I'm reading, like really dense philosophy. But there were a few images that really stuck with me, and there was this idea of like moving furniture around.
Yeah.
Um, and so then I started thinking about like moving the possibilities of your life around like furniture and sort of imagining yourself simultaneously just like looking out at all of these potential futures and pasts and rearranging it, and that's sort of what the lyrics are like at the end. But for me, I didn't interpret that as necessarily tragic, but as just like interesting, like an interesting possibility.
Well, I have to ask now, do you give validity to Feng Shui?
Oh, that's interesting. I haven't thought too much about it. I haven't thought too much about it. I did have a
That
book
was a
one
gag
time.
question.
I had a book on my shelf for a while, Feng Shui in a Weekend, which just never like came to fruition in terms of like decorating. There's just no time, so I think I eventually just gave the book away.
Perfect. Thanks very much for your time, guys. Very gracious. I just want to plug it one more time. So it's out. Strand of a Lake. It's out. Volume 1 and 2. I should add that. I
Hmm.
just have here out October 24th. So next
Yep.
week, and it's with Expert Work Records. That's all
Yep. That's
correct.
right.
Yes, perfect. And then when after the release of this double EP, what do you have planned then? I mean, you're going to make more music, or are you guys going to meet up? Because I can imagine, like, obviously you do teaching, like you guys have like jobs outside of this band. I don't know if the dynamic then is different from when you were a teenager, like, just in terms of the opportunity to actually tour and play and things like that. So is that on the cards? You guys want to do live shows, or is it all kind of going to be remote, at least for the foreseeable future?
I mean, we haven't really discussed next steps. There have been we've thrown out possibilities over the years as we've been working on this for like what could we do? I think all of us would
Actually,
like
sorry, just
to.
before you continue, I just wanted to ask actually something just based on that. So how long has the Reiterate project been going for, and how long was the timeline of actually making this record? Sorry, I should have asked that
Yeah,
earlier.
yeah, no worries. Ken, do you remember? Was it 2021 the first?
Yes,
Okay, yeah,
October 2021.
October 2021. Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, no worries. So
And the process of making the record, so it coincided with the reiteration of the band, so it was kind of like simultaneously.
yeah, I mean, basically, so because Hums was the first song, and really what started it was Mike contacting Ken, sending Hums to us, and then starting to work on it. So yeah, I mean, essentially, I guess 4 years exactly took
Wow.
the
Well,
initial
after
ideas.
finishing EP1, I broke my wrist.
Oh,
Oh
that's
no.
right. Yeah. I had already forgotten that. I'm sure you didn't tell me that.
So
So if there's going to be
half
a
of
follow-up,
EP,
sorry.
yes, yeah, half of EP2 has a metal plate in my wrist.
Oh
Yeah.
really?
But yeah, and then the other half is after I took it out. So there's different versions of me in there.
Yeah.
EP1 is perfectly healthy Ken, and then EP2 injured and then recovered Ken in there.
So you put medical expenses in the album's budget.
Yeah, yes, yes, that's it. I was a heavy metal drummer at one
Oh,
point.
yeah.
So yeah.
Perfect. And
But yeah,
so
so hopefully, my hope is that we can, however, whatever this ends up being, like however long this version of Drill for Absentee seems like it's lasting, I hope that there will be at least a performance or two that happens. The other thing for me, just like personally, I've never been to Japan. And I really would love to go. And so I'm hoping that we can play some shows in Japan, and that I can also use it as an excuse to, see a country I'd really like to see.
and
Um,
write it off as a professional expense.
yeah, exactly.
We have to go to Japan. It's just
Yeah, yeah. Well, before we had kids, I used to joke with my wife, like whenever we'd plan a vacation, she would always turn it into a tour. I'd be like, "Can
yeah.
we ever just take a vacation?" Or like, we always have to play shows. But I always loved it too. So the nice thing about traveling and playing shows is that you meet people in a way that's much more authentic than if you're just a tourist and you show up. So
Well, I'll just tell a quick story. So I actually knew a guy I went to school with, and he was a musician. He was like an acoustic singer-songwriter guy. And when he would go on vacation, he'd always bring his guitar. And so that way, it's like it's funny because like if you look at like I don't know if he's still releasing music, but at the time he was, and like technically he could say, "Oh, I've played in Spain, I've played in Vietnam," and it's just like you were just going there anyway, and you brought your guitar and set it up
yeah,
on like a beach and like, oh,
yeah,
you played around the world. That's great.
that's funny.
So
Yeah,
that's a very tricky way of doing things. So you think,
I
oh,
could
you
relate.
played
I
in
could relate.
Vietnam.
Yeah.
Thanks very much for your time, guys. Is there anything you'd like to add before we wrap up? Anything I failed to cover?
No, I think this was great. I appreciate this was a great interview. Like really, really
Absolutely.
nice work and well prepared. And it was
Thanks.
a pleasure. So I
Thanks
guess
very
if there's any details that pop into our minds, like oh we went to say this, then maybe we could just email
yeah.
you.
Yeah, you have my email, don't you?
Yeah,
Yeah, you just
yeah.
go to
I,
my
I have
website.
it
It's
because
on
you
there.
were copied on the email from
Yeah,
Dan. So
perfect. Yeah, if there's anything that's like you need that I failed, yeah, perfect.
sure. No, this was awesome.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Ken. Thanks, Kevin. And enjoy the
Yes,
rest of your
great
days.
pleasure.
And
Yeah,
get
nice
some
to meet
sleep,
you.
Ken. I'm sorry to keep
Yeah.
you awake so late.
No,
Yeah.
well, this is I see this as a special occasion. If not for this record, we wouldn't be talking. So I'm grateful that we met this way.
Yeah.
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 Absolutely. Thanks,
All
guys.
right.
All right.
Bye.
See you later, gentlemen. Have a good one.
You too. Thank you for listening to that episode of Post-Burnout.com interviews. We're available wherever you get your podcasts, so we hope that you enjoyed and would consider subscribing, giving it a like on YouTube, or a rating anywhere else. We also have some exclusive episodes only available on Spotify, which features interviews with the likes of Kim Deal, Ron Mail of Sparks, Jacob Slater of Wonder Horse, Maria Kelly, Gavin Friday, and many more. So check those out if you're so inclined. Otherwise, thank you for listening and see you next time.